Welcome everybody to this latest episode of Espresso the Evangelist. My name's Dave Carroll. I'm the Continuous Delivery Evangelist here at Split, and today I have Dave Murphy, who heads up Customer Success.
Hello, Dave.
And I also have Lizzie Erdley, who's a data scientist here at Split. This is a series. We're starting a series of 3 videos. Our goal here really is to help people get kind of the foundation to run their experiments and kind of save them from learning some things the hard way.
Absolutely.
Right? So
That's
tell
the
us
goal.
more about what we're going to do here, Dave.
Well, there are, as you said, 3 things that we're going to cover as part of this series. The first is, why am I running this experiment? What's the purpose?
What's the goal?
Is it just to see what happens, or do I have a specific goal? Secondly, how am I going to measure to make sure that I hit my goal? What are the things that we're going to look at, and how do we design those metrics? And then finally, how long is it going to take for me to get to the result I want? What are the things that are going to impact the time in which I could find an effect of the experiment, whether or not the new thing that I'm doing has an impact or didn't have no impact.
Needles enough. Right?
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly.
Awesome. Okay. So then today we're starting with really, how do I be intentional about this? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? And that'll lead to what am I trying to prove, and how am I going to figure out whether I succeed or fail?
Exactly.
Et cetera, right?
Exactly. We want to see not just what happens, but what happens to a specific goal that we have in mind. So throughout the series, we're going to use an example, something that everyone can relate to, which is booking a hotel room. So we've got our Split hotel, and we're going to try and optimize some things around our Split hotel. So on our website, we're going to make some changes to see if it impacts user behavior. Now, your experiment could be something that you're doing on the back end. You're changing a search algorithm. You're changing the way that a page gets shown up. In this case, we're going to have a user feature that we want to intentionally have the user make a specific action.
Okay, right. And I think we're talking here about booking a hotel with and without a spa package, yeah?
Yes, yes. So my hypothesis is, if I'm going to run an experiment, I think because I've seen customer satisfaction increase as a result of customers having the spa package, I want to incent them to have the spa package by pre-selecting that as part of the website. So when they get to our website, they've pre-selected the spa package, in which case I expect we'll get higher customer satisfaction and probably higher revenue.
So again, and we're thinking now that we'll turn on the spa package by default instead of having it be an optional thing, and they could deselect it if they want. But we're switching from so that the normal experience is that it's an option in there and you could turn it on, and we want to have it on by default. But there's some pushback around the organization about whether that's going to have a negative impact, right?
Yeah, potentially people will not book because they see a price that's too high and not know that they can deselect the spa
So we need to figure out, are we going to win or lose by bundling that in by default? Are we going to, is revenue going to be good? Is satisfaction going to be good? Is everything going to be fine? Or are we going to, crater our business?
Right, and my hypothesis is, as the person who's experimenting, is because we saw an increase in customer satisfaction for people who selected the spa package, we're going to pre-select the spa package as when they come to the website, which will lead to an increase in customer satisfaction for those people who book.
Hang on a second there, Dave. So I'd say there's a few problematic aspects of that as an experiment hypothesis. So when you say you think that it will increase customer satisfaction, it's not clear what exactly you mean by customer satisfaction or how it will be measured. So do you mean customer satisfaction for all of the visitors, all the users who ended up booking, or all the ones who ended up booking a spa package? I think for a good experiment hypothesis, you need to be really specific and clear as to exactly what you're trying to measure.
Well, it's a great point, Lizzie, and you're right, not everyone fills out the survey. So we've got imperfect data coming in. And the other problem, I suppose, is that the customer satisfaction surveys come to us, potentially weeks or months after they've actually booked. So perhaps that's not the best thing for me to measure as my main measurement for the hypothesis.
So here's an example. Of, it might sound, oh yeah, that makes sense, you want to test that, but in practice, when you look at it, when you start to be disciplined about writing out your hypothesis, you think to yourself, wait a minute, customer sat is not something I can do interactively online as they're flowing through the shopping cart experience. Right? So I need something else, right? So maybe I need to figure out, is there another proxy for goodness that I want to measure? And we'll talk about measuring and metrics in the next video, but so I guess we have to refine our hypothesis a little bit, right, Lizzie?
Yes, very much. I think finding the best proxy for the change to behavior that you are trying to impact is the way to write a good experimentation hypothesis. So which metric is going to capture it best?
Dave, what if we sort of look at this, what if we want to disprove the naysayers? What if our experiment were, I want to prove that in fact by toggling this on, we don't tank the revenue?
Yeah, and I think the most important thing that I'm looking for as the hotelier is that they book. So I'm guessing that I can continue to use the input that says the surveys are good. So I am going to use that as a reason to experiment.
Okay.
So I'm going to,
because you see greater customer sat for people who had a spa experience, you're going to bundle the spa experience by default, and you want to make sure that you don't see a drop in the number of people that book.
Exactly.
So we have our, so how's that for our hypothesis, Lizzie?
Yeah, that sounds like a really good structure. So based on the fact that you saw X, you believe that changing Y is going to cause Z.
But what I'm hearing from Lizzie is that we just need to make sure if we are going to identify a metric for success, that it's something that we actually can measure. It also sounded like, Lizzie, that you were saying we need to look at how we are measuring that as a input even going into it, whether or not we need to consider customers who haven't filled out the customer satisfaction package or survey.
I think it's very important to make sure that you have a very specific metric specified before you start, because otherwise, once you've run your experiment, there are many different ways you can slice and dice that same metric, and then you are in danger of seeing one of those ways look impacted, but that's just because you looked at many different ways to measure the same thing.
So as I'm developing my hypothesis, is it, because there's a lot of things that I can measure, right? I could measure the average booking value. I could measure the number of nights they stay. I could measure the customer satisfaction. There's a number of ways that I might be measuring success in this experiment. But when I'm developing my hypothesis, should I be focusing on a single measurement of success, or should I be thinking about all of those things that might ultimately get impacted by the thing that I'm trying to accomplish?
I would encourage you to focus on one metric, which is the best proxy. So if you think that you are going to increase customer happiness, perhaps the number of bookings or the number of repeat bookings is the best proxy for that. You also want to measure many other metrics to see if you can learn more, or if you have impacted any metrics you didn't intend to, but the hypothesis should be focused around one particular metric.
And we'll talk about how we're going to measure that in the next video, but hopefully this kind of helps us think about the thought process, and the kind of, don't assume your first stab at it is going to make sense, and be ready, willing to kind of poke some holes in it. Right?
Yeah, and I guess that's a relatively simple hypothesis or example of a hypothesis. Lizzie, what might else go into a hypothesis?
Yeah, so you might want to think about exactly which segment of users or accounts, like who are you targeting with this, and do you believe it's going to work for all of the people that come to your site, to your product, or only a specific segment? You might also want to think about the size of the impact that you're expecting, and perhaps the motivation behind it. So why is this change going to be good for the business, for the customers? So maybe you see more bookings. The objective would be to make more people use your product, and more people get what they came to out of it, and also obviously good for business in terms of more revenue.
Great. So maybe I can refine my hypothesis by saying, because we've seen an increase in customer satisfaction in the past, I am going to pre-select the spa package for perhaps just my platinum or premium customers, because I know they're the ones who are more likely to spend money and not be turned off by the dollar volume. So I'm protecting myself a little bit there on the downside, at least for this initial experiment.
Right.
And expect to see amongst those a 5% increase in bookings, which will ultimately lead to more revenue. How's that, Lizzie?
I think that sounds great.
Awesome. Well, I think we're off to a good start. So that's the first of our 3 videos on Foundations for Experiments. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Lizzie. And hope you found this useful. And we'll be back with another video real soon.